Hello and welcome to polyplane.com. Today we're going to be discussing fillets a little bit further. I covered this topic maybe a few months after the site started, and I just wanted to go through a little bit further some of the ideas behind fillets, why you might be having issues and why they break sometimes. So this is a model that I did for a webinar a couple weeks ago on noveg.com. And this is the finished product. Came out pretty sweet. When I was running the webinar, I started a new model to demonstrate. So I'm going to switch over to that one. And what we're going to do is we're going to be focusing just on this base here because I came across some issues while doing the webinar that made the fillets break. And I wasn't really sure what was going on, and the show must go on. So I copied the old base into the new model just to keep things moving along. But I did want to come back to this because I think it must just be serendipity that I plan to explore fillets further, and then this happened. So we're going to use this as our base example here. The blue lines represent the profile of the new base, and this is our old base. I'm actually going to select all my surfaces here and join them. And I want to just kind of explore, first of all, the radiuses that make up the fillets right now are radiuses that don't exceed tangent points, meaning if I make a block here real quick and I fillet the edges at like 2. Now, because the radius was much bigger than the actual form of geometry itself, the computer tries to figure out how those radiuses would trim together. Now, because they're way past the tangent point, they wind up breaking and getting all ugly. And this is a topic that a couple users have emailed me about before, about they were trying to put these nice soft rollovers on their model, and it just wasn't working for them. So let's look at this at a more granular level. Let's just look at it with curves. If I wanted to fillet this box, let's make this a nice round number. We'll call that 5. In order to fit a nice smooth radius from one side to the other, so going from this edge to this edge, whatever this fillet is, it can't exceed the midpoint of this shape. So right now, this is as extreme of a fillet as I can put on here without exceeding this middle line here. The reason is because if I were to mirror this over right now, that creates a perfect arc. But if the scale of this arc was bigger, let's make it like that and then move it back down. You can see what happens here from one fillet to the other. Because it goes beyond that halfway point, your trim line actually intersects this other curve here, so you start to get an issue. Now this is just with two faces coming together. So if I extrude this shape up here, we'll extrude that out. And I know because this is a 5-inch square box from this side, if I fillet the edge 2.5, it'll give me that nice perfect rollover. See that? But if I were to go higher than 2.5, so let's fillet edge 2.501, so not even that much, it's going to make the surface, but because it exceeded that halfway point, it wasn't able to trim back the adjacent surfaces because this other fillet over here coming into that space. So what you can do is get as close to that 2.5 and they'll match up, but the issue here is because they're perfectly on center of that line, you're actually going to have to do an additional operation here to make this work. So what I'll do is I'll explode it, trim it, and then trim these corners back to finish the operation. This is just on two axes. This is on the X and the Y. If we're doing something with a little more of a compound curve, such as a corner like that, that's where it starts to get really tricky, and that's what I'm going to show you now. So with the new geometry, I had decided at the last minute to put this little kink in the profile. So I'm going to extrude this out, and you can see the top face of the lamp base actually doesn't match my original base, and this is because I just want to put a little more interest in there, make it all work a little bit better. So I felt by putting that kink in there, it might be just a little more interesting. But on top of that, I tapered this out. I came in here, turn on it, and get it really close to the first base that I did, only with that kink. So let's invert everything for a second. And just look at this. So I know that because of the scale of this thing, I can safely put a 1-inch fillet on all 4 corners and be fine. Part of that is because I know that from this point to this point is more than 1 inch. So I'm good there. I'm not going to have any conflicts. So the one thing you want to keep in mind when you're doing this is you kind of have to know what your geometry is. You have to know the distances between certain points. So the reason that these fillets worked okay in this front corner here is because the radius was actually smaller than the distance from this point right here to the leading edge. So here to here. So that point to this line out here is more than 1 inch. So that allows that fillet to work. But then when you get into the top, here's where things started to get tricky. So I did fillet edge and I did a like 0.125 and I was like, yeah, that's fine. There's no intersecting rollovers that are going to be weird. Hit enter. And what happens is it breaks. Now the reason it breaks is because of the kink in the corner, because not only does the surface have to figure out how to exceed to the left here, but it also has to exceed how to roll over, and it also has to know how to roll over this kink. So the only way it can do that is by breaking the surface on top, and then that way it creates a clean point where that radius can proceed. So what do you do? How do we fix this? Well, what you can do is actually select everything and explode it. So you want to come in here and select these surfaces. That one. We'll even lock it just to make sure it stays put. Lock that, and then grab the problem surface and delete it. And unlock everything again here and delete that. And we're even going to delete the rollover here and do this same thing over here. Okay, so now we have a nice clean base here, but there's a big hole in it, so we're going to select everything and join it, and then I can just type cap and that'll clean it up. So fix that part. Now the other problem was there were these base details up top, so these like points where the arms of the lamp came up. I'm just going to we can remodel that really quick. Now normally when you're doing a series of fillets on a single object, it's good to actually build your geometry as you want it to be in completion first. So meaning that all this block modeling that I'm doing right now, I would actually have done that before I did the fillets on the base. But you know, for what we're doing here, it doesn't matter a whole lot. So I'm gonna come in here, write how it should be. Took this, make a boolean out of it, that going, okay, and then mirror this one over. All right, so we've got those 3 shapes there and our blocky base. Okay, so we've got the block stuff done. Now what I would do is I'd take everything and union it together. And then what I want to do is I actually want to apply fillets to all this hard geometry up top. So I'll fillet edge, and you need to find the closest joining fillets that you can, which is going to be right here, and divide that number by 2. So knowing that that gap is 0.2 inches, I know that I can't exceed 0.1 as my fillet radius. I will type 0.1 and select both those edges, test it, and sure enough, there's a nice gap there. In the design that I have, all these radii are actually the same dimension, so I would go ahead and apply those. But if you wanted to apply a fillet that was 0.1 where it met the base, and then maybe actually select everything here just for fun, and then select one of these to make it a little bit bigger. We'll say these are all, and unfortunately you do have to reset when you have this many fillets. You still have to reset it at its handle manually. You can't like select a batch of handles, which would be really awesome, but in Rhino specifically you can't do that, but that's okay. It's all about the process. And now you've got some larger fillets in those corners, so you can mix and match your fillets as you need to. And let's say I want to show you one last thing, and then I got to wrap this up here, but let's say for some reason one of these funky radii in the corner didn't take, and it wound up doing something like that. You can always do a 2-rail sweep. So sweep 2 and just, you know, select your edges. We've got an issue here. I'm gonna duplicate the edge just so I get a nice clean edge. Hit enter and then join that, and then sweep 2. So we'll select that rail and then select your 2 cross pieces here, and that'll that'll be fixed. So you can do quite a bit. You can do quite a bit with fillets and make them nice and clean. Again, if you were watching the webinar and you watched that happen, that break, I didn't want to get into all the explanation that I just gave you now to make that happen, but there you go. That's how you clean that up. So real quick before we go here, there's only 1 week left to submit images for the MMC that I posed last month. Make sure you get in there. If you see you must be registered and logged in to go to upload images, you can just go to resources forum or just type polyplane.com community forum and just click on the registration button, and that'll get you over there to register, and then you can submit images. Make sure you put some sort of identification on your submission, like who it's from, so I know who to give the prize to when the voting starts, which is the following week. So make sure you do that and have a good time with it. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.